So today, we're diving into one of the coolest frontiers in all of sports science, the athlete's brain. We're going to break down how this incredible organ is the real engine behind talent, skill, and ultimately, peak performance. And let's kick things off with this thought from Plato. It's such a great reminder that being at your best isn't just about raw physical strength, right? It's about this whole system working together, mind and body. And sometimes the mind shows us what's truly possible in ways we can barely imagine. To really get a sense of the brain's incredible power, you have to hear this story. It's wild, and it's completely true. Back in 2005, there was this teenager, Abraham Atayi, who had a terrible drowning accident. Now, think about this. His brain was starved of oxygen for almost 10 minutes. For our brains, that is a catastrophic amount of time. So when he finally came out of a coma, yeah, he had some amnesia, but something way more fundamental, way deeper, had been rewired. Doctors figured it out. The accident had permanently damaged his pineal gland. You can think of that as the brain's master clock, the thing that controls our sleep-wake cycle. And the result was unbelievable. Ibrahim Atayi had completely lost the ability to sleep. And no, I'm not kidding. He hasn't slept since. For almost 2 decades, Abraham has lived every single hour of every single day. But here's the thing. Instead of breaking down, his brain adapted. He started filling his nights with reading, running, training. He turned what should have been a death sentence into a new way of life. And that leads us to the big question, right? How on earth can a brain pull off a miracle like that? Ibrahim's story isn't just some medical oddity. It's this powerful testament to the brain's potential, a potential that, believe it or not, every athlete can learn to tap into. So here's our game plan for today. We've just talked about the brain that never sleeps. Next, we'll get into the science of skill. Then, we're going to map out athletic genius, decode the brain waves of a champion, and finally, talk about how we can harness all that amazing power. All right, let's jump right into the science, because to really understand what makes an athlete great, you first have to understand the brain's fundamental toolkit for building that greatness. And the master tool, the absolute star of the show, is neuroplasticity. This is just the brain's amazing ability to rewire itself based on what you do. The key takeaway here is that your brain isn't some fixed, hardwired machine. It's more like clay, constantly being shaped and reshaped by your every action. This is literally the biology of how we learn anything. So for an athlete, this rewiring happens in 3 main ways. First, you strengthen the connections you already have, kind of like turning a small footpath into a highway. Second, you build totally new pathways, new roads in the network. And third, the whole system just gets smarter and more efficient at sending signals. Now, what's really cool and maybe a little counterintuitive is that the brain doesn't just add connections, it also subtracts them. It's a process called synaptic pruning. Think of it like your brain doing some spring cleaning. It gets rid of the junk, the slow, inefficient pathways, so that the important ones can run faster and stronger. Every time you practice, you are literally sculpting your brain. Okay, so we know the brain rewires itself, but which specific parts are doing all the heavy lifting? Come on, let's take a quick tour of the athlete's brain. The best way to think of it is like a high-performance team where every member has a very specific job. You've got the prefrontal cortex, that's the CEO, making all the strategic decisions. The motor cortex is the one that actually executes the plan. The cerebellum is the master of coordination. And the basal ganglia, well, its job is to automate skills so you don't even have to think about them anymore. Let's zoom in a bit. On the left is the prefrontal cortex, your strategist. In sports like tennis or soccer, this area is on fire as you're planning your next move. And on the right, you've got the cerebellum. This little guy is all about smooth, flawless movement. For a gymnast on a balance beam, the cerebellum is working overtime, making thousands of tiny adjustments to keep everything perfect. Now check these two out. Over on the left, the primary motor cortex is like the ignition switch. It sends that final go signal to your muscles for a quick sprint or a powerful kick. And on the right is the basal ganglia. This is where the real magic of practice happens. It's what turns a clunky, conscious effort into a perfectly smooth, unconscious habit. Every single automated golf swing or basketball free throw is a masterpiece built by this part of the brain. So beyond just the brain's anatomy, we can actually measure its activity in real time by looking at its electrical signals, or brain waves. And these signals can tell us exactly what an athlete's mental state is from one moment to the next.
What's so amazing is that different brainwaves correspond to different states of mind. Alpha waves, for instance, show a relaxed focus. Think of a marksman right before they pull the trigger. Beta waves kick in during intense competition, when you're making split-second decisions. Gamma waves are linked to those incredible peak performance flow states. And then you've got theta and delta waves, which are absolutely vital for mental rehearsal and the deep recovery that happens when we sleep.
Okay, knowing all the science is one thing, but the real question is, how do we actually apply it? So let's look at some of the practical training techniques that can really harness the brain's power. Brain training really falls into two big buckets. You've got active techniques, where you have to make a conscious effort, like mental imagery, and then you have passive techniques, which let the brain recover and lock in new skills without you even trying. And ironically, the most powerful passive technique is the very thing Ibrahim Ataya lost: sleep. Sleep isn't just downtime, it's a high-performance activity. During that deep delta wave sleep, your brain is literally taking out the trash, clearing out all the metabolic waste. It's also cementing memories, strengthening the neural pathways for skills you practice that day. It is, without a doubt, the brain's ultimate passive training tool. On the active side, you've got mental imagery. And this is just a beautiful example of neuroplasticity in action. When an athlete vividly imagines performing a skill, their brain activates the exact same circuits as if they were really doing it. The motor cortex, the cerebellum, all of it lights up. It's literally practicing without moving a muscle. Which brings us right back to where we started. Ibrahim Ataya's brain was faced with an impossible challenge: losing its most important recovery tool. And it didn't just break, it reorganized. It pruned old pathways, it built new ones, and it created an entirely new way of functioning. He is a living, breathing monument to neuroplasticity. And that's what I want to leave you with. Abraham's story proves that our brain's capacity to adapt is just way beyond what we normally think is possible. So the real question is this: if a brain can do that, what kind of untapped potential is just sitting there, waiting to be unlocked inside every single athlete's mind?